Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Spin It Reviews, and today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Coheed and Cambria called The Color Before the Sun. You know, there are really times when I feel like fans do not care to understand the songwriter's point of view. Perfect example being the latest situation with Coheed and Cambria, the New York-based prog-rock band who's spent their entire 15-year career so far writing within the same sci-fi universe in the form of an adaptation of frontman Claudio Sanchez's comic book series, The Amory Wars. Admittedly though, for as insanely admirable as it is to write not just a concept album, but a concept discography basically, and get as successful as these guys have in the process, it's honestly the one thing that's kept me from getting 100% into one of their albums. Really, whenever I read through the lyrics of one of these albums, I feel like I flipped to the middle of a sci-fi novel where everything was taken out except for the dialogue, leaving character names and specific situations for the song titles for the listener to somehow piece together an already pretty complex story from what I've seen. Which made me all the more interested and excited when it was announced that their new one, The Color Before the Sun, would be their first non-concept album to date. Of course, this put a few fans' panties in a bunch, as you might expect, but in a way it makes perfect sense. You base over a decade's work of writing in the same fictional universe, you're either going to get bored or stale after a while, and I can't blame Claudio for wanting to take a little break from that. And I'll still gladly defend him on this decision, since this album is basically everything I was hoping it would be. But before we get to what was obviously the biggest change, I want to talk about what's really kept me a fan of Coheed, the music. I know I called them a prog rock band earlier, but since the beginning they've been fusing in elements of hard rock, post-hardcore, pop-punk, straight-up pop music, and possibly the deadliest prog sin of them all, 4/4 time signatures. They have that distinctly Rush-like ability of knowing just how proggy and experimental or poppy and straightforward to be at all times, with both the musicianship and the knack for great hooks and strong melodies to pull off both sides. Also strangely coincidental that their most polarizing traits are their lofty concepts and high-voiced frontmen with great hair. Anyway, on The Color Before the Sun, much like on their Afterman albums, we get a lot more of that accessible side. I'll put it like this. You can actually fit 9 song titles from this album into one of their previous album titles. And no, I don't mean this like they totally sold out or anything, but they're just making more tight, concise, catchy songs, and like I said earlier, they're really good at doing that when they want to be. Lead single You Got Spirit Kid shows their ability to write a great 80s influenced pop rock single that doesn't pretend it's anything but a great 80s pop rock single. And meanwhile we see a bit more of that pop punk influence on the opener here, Island, which definitely wouldn't feel out of place next to some of the singles from In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 like Blood Red Summer and A Favorite House Atlantic, though with a bit more of a sonic budget. Songs like Here to Mars and Atlas show these guys can write a truly huge chorus when they tap into that more anthemic side, and Peace to the Mountain throws in these repeated chants and string and horn sections that swell and end this album on an epic high note. On the harder side, I love the bassy and playfully sinister groove on Eraser that reminds me a lot of parts of Number City from Dissension, and of course there's the multifaceted The Audience, transitioning from one great section to the next over its 6-minute runtime, each more hard-hitting than the last. The one song I have any real issue with is Young Love, which is for some reason really built around this weak 3-note riff that frankly sounds like the producer accidentally hit record when the guitarist was just hitting random notes between takes. I don't know, but for the most part this album is really well put together. But now we gotta talk about that big sci-fi universe-sized elephant in the room. And like I said, I really think this was the best decision Claudio could have made. Now, like you might expect, this album definitely takes a turn for the personal and the autobiographical. Generally, from what I'm seeing, The Color Before the Sun is about a guy finally learning to get it together and take control of his life in the face of his first son being born. Eraser is where it's done the least sentimentally, where he's growing older and realizing there's someone in his life whose crap he's been putting up with for way too long, a feeling that I think all of us can relate to from time to time. It does teeter on corny in a couple lines, and in general there are a couple songs on this album that could have used a little less gratuitous cursing, but in this case, to me, it's just enough that it adds some authenticity to the track. You Got Spirit Kid is kind of similar, though in this case it's more your own crap that's not being put up with anymore. It's an absurdly charming and well-needed slap in the face to people like me who just get way too in their own head about everything, to the point where it can get a little self-centered after a while. This song is just dripping with sarcasm at every turn, and I just love it more and more every time I play it. Where things get a bit more heartfelt is when he's talking about this anticipated family, like on the short but effective solo acoustic track Ghost, where he admits through some fantastic imagery the fear he has of getting too hands-on when raising his kid for fear of making the same mistakes his parents did. Even as someone half Claudio's age, I really felt the emotion coming through here, and it was a really good idea for him to sing in his lower register here. Atlas, the song named after his son, continues this, with his insecurities taunting him about how irreversible this all is. There's a real running theme of taking responsibility on this album, and to me the song is the main centerpiece of all that. Plus, Claudio's very straightforward, rambly delivery on this track really adds a lot of sincerity, in my opinion. It also culminates in a different way on the song The Audience, where he basically breaks down the fourth wall to address the fans who get their work, the people who just want to tear them down for not fitting in, whether it be for the prog rock, the metal, or pop worlds, and industry people who just want to milk one of these things for their own benefit. Just a very satisfying statement of confidence that I can't help but appreciate. So yeah, I'm really loving The Color Before the Sun, and I'm going to give it an 8.5. I'm still on the fence as to whether it's as musically awesome as Dissension, but the thematic change-up works wonders, and these guys still know how to make some pretty potent poppy prog rock. Alliteration. So if you guys have heard this album, what do you think about it? Do you agree with what I had to say? Do you disagree? Have any feedback about the channel in general? Let me know in the comments down below. Share this around with anyone who might be interested. Like the Facebook page in the description for updates, and hopefully I'll see you in the next episode of Spin It Reviews.